death and destruction. I reject this ghastly state-olatry. There's an unholy desire on the part of some Christians to legitimize killing in war. They have the attitude that what is required conduct for individuals is not required conduct for nations. In the minds of some Christians, it is okay for someone to put on a uniform and kill someone halfway around the world, but it is murder if the same person killed someone here in the United States. Although it was Oliver Cromwell who said that there are great occasions in which some men are called to great services, in the doing of which they are excused from the common rule of morality, even a nominal Christian like Thomas Jefferson spoke against this mindset, writing in a letter to James Madison in 1789, "I know but one code of morality for men, whether acting singly or collectively. He who says, I will be a rogue when I act in company with 100 others, but an honest man when I act alone, will be believed in the former assertion, but not in the latter. A man does not throw his morality out the window just because he puts on a military uniform." There is nothing inherently religious about what the church should be saying about war and foreign policy. It is merely aversion to war and the non-interventionist foreign policy of the Founding Fathers. A non-interventionist foreign policy is not just an old right foreign policy, a libertarian foreign policy, or a paleo-conservative foreign policy. It is a Jeffersonian foreign policy. Jefferson believed in no judgment, no meddling, no political connection, no partiality, no war, and no entangling alliances. What is wrong with the wisdom of Jefferson? How much wiser were the Founding Fathers than Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Pearl, Powell, Rice, and the other architects of the Iraq War? What would a non-interventionist foreign policy look like? We haven't had one in so long that it might be hard to imagine what it would be like. Perhaps it would be better to consider what a non-interventionist foreign policy would not look like. Having a non-interventionist foreign policy doesn't mean that the U.S. should refuse to participate in the Olympics, refuse to make treaties, refuse to issue visas, refuse to trade, refuse to allow foreign investment, refuse to extradite criminals, refuse to exchange diplomats, refuse to allow cultural exchanges, refuse to allow immigration or travel. A non-interventionist foreign policy would not be an isolationist foreign policy. We know that the word isolationism is a pejorative term of intimidation used to stifle debate over foreign policy. But no advocate of non-intervention in foreign affairs wants to build a fortified fence around the United States and retreat behind it, as Clinton's national security advisor Sandy Berger smeared us. In his 2006 State of the Union speech, President Bush did the same thing, thrice warning us of the dangers of retreating into isolationism. The United States cannot police the world. We have no right to police the world. It is the height of arrogance to try and remake the world in our image. Most of what happens in the world is none of our concern and certainly none of our business. It is not the responsibility of the United States to remove corrupt rulers and oppressive dictators from power. The kind of government a country has and the type of leader it has is the sole responsibility of the people in that country. There is absolutely no reason why the United States would be justified in attacking and invading a sovereign country. If the people in a country don't like their ruler, then they should get rid of him themselves and not expect the United States to intervene. The truth of the matter is that the handful of men who hold political power in a country cannot, in and of themselves, compel that country's citizens to obey them in every respect. They have to have the cooperation of the people. If an individual American feels so strongly about one side in a civil war or border dispute, then he can send money to the side he favors, he can pray for one side to be victorious, or he can enlist in the army of his preferred side. Anything but call for sending in the U.S. Marines. How strange it is that advocates of U.S. military interventions and maintain a policy of strict political isolation or neutrality. Political isolation is the only isolation we desire. Once we bring the troops home from around the globe, strict limits should be set to keep them home. Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler recommended a peace amendment that would prohibit the removal of the Army from U.S. soil, limit the distance that Navy ships could steam from our coasts, and limit the distance that military aircraft could fly from our borders. I would like to say something in conclusion about civil liberties. Intervention abroad cannot but follow intervention at home. There is no way a country can have hundreds of foreign bases and thousands of troops stationed overseas without a massive and oppressive bureaucracy at home. Conservative godfather and Cold Warrior William Buckley admitted as much back in the early 1950s. We have to accept big government for the duration, for neither an offensive nor a defensive war can be waged given our present government skills except through the instrumentality of a totalitarian bureaucracy within our shores. Buckley went on to recommend that we support large armies and air forces, central intelligence, war production boards, and the attendant centralization of power in Washington. William Jennings Bryan articulated a better idea over 100 years ago. We assert that no nation can long endure half republic and half empire. And we warn the American people that imperialism abroad will lead quickly to despotism at home. The state uses war to strip its citizens of their liberties. The authority of the legislature and the force of law that, at least in principle, thwart government power in peacetime quickly diminish during times of war. The father of the Constitution, James Madison, recognized this. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. Throughout the 20th century, interventionism was the guiding principle of U.S. foreign policy under either political party. The 9/11 attacks were just the beginning of a worldwide revolt against U.S. imperialism and empire. Of all people, Christians should know the truth and speak the truth about the evils of U.S. wars and foreign policy. They should see Bush's rhetoric about extending the benefits of freedom across the globe and enlarging the realm of liberty for what it is. Plain, old-fashioned interventionism, pure and simple. Only a Jeffersonian foreign policy of peace, commerce, friendship, and no entangling alliances can cut the tentacles of U.S. global interventionism. Can any Christian honestly say that Bush's principles are better than Jefferson's principles? So, what can a Christian do? What should a Christian do? Number one, educate yourself. The FFF publications, the Mises Institute publications, the websites, antiwar.com, etc. Number two, speak up. You don't support the troops, you don't support the war, you don't support U.S. foreign policy. Speak up. Don't be silent. What else can a Christian do? Number three, endure. You're going to be called a traitor. You're going to be called a liberal, an anti-American. You need to endure. And finally, stand your ground. Your loyalty as a Christian is to Jesus Christ and the Bible, not to the government and the military. Thank you.